Hi! So it's about the beginning of March. Welcome to this reading vlog. I hope you guys really enjoy it. I'm going to be reading 3 books, or I'm going to be talking about 3 books in this reading vlog. And we're going to start off strong with Vampires of the Norte by Isabel Canos. And honestly, I just started it. I'm on the 3rd chapter. The first 2 were way intense. Like, this is going to be good. This is supposed to be a super spooky romance, like a gothic romance with like wonderful vampires. So ultimately, I'm really interested to see how this kind of goes. I know like the general gist is Nina is presumed dead by Nestor because of something that happened whenever they were children, which is literally the first 2 chapters. Like, the first 2 chapters were way intense. I really enjoyed that, so I'm excited to see what the rest of this book brings. And the way I like to read, sometimes whenever I feel like I want to make sure I get to that next goal, is I'll use 2 different tabs. So the blue one means that that's where I'm at, and then this purple pinky one means this is where I want to be at. So this is where like I'm reading to, and I want to read about 100 pages pretty soon. It's just like a moving goal. Just like, you know, that short little goal. It helps me. So, all right, we'll see how this rest of this goes. All right, so I'm about 100 pages in on the Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canos, and honestly, it's really good. I'll be honest, like the first 2 chapters, like they just hook you. They just like, it sinks your claws in, and it just works really well. I'm on chapter 10 right now, and it's been really, really good. I have enjoyed the style of miscommunication. I'm usually not like a big fan of that, but it also works really well in this scenario because it's set in like the 1840s Mexico. So Nina, our protagonist, shouldn't say protagonist. Our female lead doesn't have much autonomy. She's basically a thing for her family to kind of use, in a sense of her father can kind of wants her to marry well for her own benefit. But she doesn't necessarily want to. She really wants to stay on the area that she's at. Well, there's a war coming, and because of that war, she's able to convince him, like, hey, let me go to help support the troops, in the sense of like, helping them stay healthy, like if someone's injured, to just basically be like a nurse. And what's interesting to me is Nestor, the main lead, is he thought Nina was gone, like actually gone from this plane of existence. And it was because they didn't necessarily tell either one of them. Like his abuela didn't let him know that Nina was still alive. But also it wasn't something that like they came across. Anyways, the whole drama of it at the beginning is Nestor comes back to help protect his the place that he grew up at, leading up to this war, because they're going to be marched on. And he's like, oh no, I need to have some honor. I need to protect my grandmother, which is like super nice. And then I get a feeling that it's going to cause, like, unless they actually, you know, like, unless the couple actually gets to talk about stuff. But also that is part of it, is like, how much do you want to trust this person? Because in Nina's eyes, he left at a very distraught time, and in Nestor's eyes, she's back from the grave. So that's where we're at right now. I get a feeling that Nina's gonna rip into her siblings very soon. So I'm really excited for this one. So it's not very spring-like. I don't know, it's kind of spring. It's dark spring, in my opinion. I'd say it's about spring because we're starting in February and April. So I think they're actually getting into summer. I don't think we're not in October yet. Yeah. So it's like on chapter 6, this is also what I've really enjoyed, is they're also helping us place where the time is. So it's like April right now in Mexico, and so like they're slowly going through, like sometimes at the beginning of the chapters they'll have like the month in the year kind of helping us place everything, so we also know how much time has passed. I thought that was a really cool use of it, because there's a lot of the time that people use that for a journal entry to help, keep it going. I don't know. I definitely give it a recommendation already. Especially if you like spooky stuff, because I think it's going to get super spooky. And I do think spring and summer can be just as spooky as fall, because life is just spooky. All right, I'm going to stop rambling and get back to reading. All right, so I am on the home stretch, pretty much, of this book of The Vampires del Norte by Isabel Canas, and honestly, it might be one of my favorite books. It's pairing really well with the gothic horror style, but not like too intense at the moment. It's gotten really intense. We've gotten to the war. We are interacting with the vampires, and we're figuring out like what is kind of happening. And now we have the tension. The tension of the romance is getting really good because, well, one, Nina still holds a lot of resentment towards Nestor. And Nestor is telling her, it's like, hey, I literally thought you were gonzies whenever we were kids of what would happen. And so Nina's like, why are you being such an idiot? And she's having a lot of resentment. She's being very stubborn. And Nestor is also very stubborn. So it's quite enjoyable. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna kind of home stretch it. I definitely think this is one book I'm gonna recommend to a lot of people, because I think it has the nice amount of horror, scare, like enough tension and thriller and horror to tide most people over without being like overly dramatic on the romance, because I know that can be something that people have some apprehension about, is with romance, like what are the romantic overtures? Like, is it just about the romance? No. Is it still pretty heavily delved into the romance? Yeah, because this is, part of it, and it's doing it really well. I've quite enjoyed it. So, we'll keep going. All right, so I recently finished Vampires del Norte by Isabel Canas, and I had to give it back to the library, so I don't have it with me. It was amazing. It was honestly so good. I think she's going to be one of my favorite writers now, with that gothic horror, along with Silvia Moreno Garcia, another author I really enjoy. It makes me more excited to read Silver Nitrate now. I've been struggling getting into that one by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I loved Vampires del Norte because it was so well done. I loved the setting, the research that she did on actually placing the family and the situation, how that would actually have affected things. And I really appreciate that. I love it whenever authors, especially with historical fiction, which I would consider this a historical fiction horror novel, honestly, because it tied it in really well. And I liked the dual point of views between Nestor, the love interest, and Nina, the main character, and it made me very happy. It was a very easy read. I struggled a little bit, like I procrastinated a tiny bit in there during like the third act, because it kind of has like a third act breakup, but not really, because they're not, it's a class system, and So I guess it has like some class system in the sense of like she's not able to just marry whoever she wants because of marriages can be political and things like that. So I really quite enjoyed it. Thought it was awesome. I'm gonna read La Hacienda soon. I hope. I don't know. I just kind of read whatever comes across my fancy for the most part. But besides that, I'm starting Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This will be my third novel from him that I've read. I've read the first two Mistborns recently as audiobooks. So I'm really interested to see how they go with a physical book and audiobook because I found it and it was available, and so I had to get it so I can listen to it a little bit. And I'm reading this physically and actually getting into it. I was actually at my D&D, playing D&D with some of my friends, and one of the girls was like, oh, I've never read any of his, and we're supposed to be we're supposed to be doing something else, but no, we like have like a 10-minute conversation about Brandon Sanderson and his novels while the DM is like messing with her dog because he started being a butt. She's like, oh, you guys need to figure out some of this. And like she gets back and is like, oh, what have you guys figured out? And we're like, absolutely nothing. Thank you. So I've heard there's a lot of good things to say about this. This was one of the secret projects that he had that was crowdfunded, and I have really enjoyed it so far. I'm not 100% sure exactly where I'm at in the novel because I started it as an audiobook while I was out and about. But besides that, I think it's been a lot of fun listening to this. So I'm excited to get in there, read some, and see how it kind of goes. It was told to me to read it because I really like The Princess Bride, and that's one of the big things like people say is like, if you loved The Princess Bride, you should really give this one a chance. So I'm very excited to read it, and I can definitely see the correlation and then some similarities with The Princess Bride, so makes me very happy. So I will talk to you guys in a bit. So I'm reading Tress of the Emerald Sea right now. Really, it's such a fun book. I've really enjoyed it. I'm listening to it as an audiobook and reading it physically because apparently that's just my vibe. I enjoy, if I can get an audiobook, I absolutely adore it. The having the audiobooks helps me out because I have issues, trying to pronounce names. Honestly, at this point in my life, anyone's name, but especially fantasy characters. But I got to the point, I'm around, this one's a little behind. So on the book, I was at 36, and I listened to a couple chapters. I'm around 40. And I got to a point that it was a spoiler for me. Because this is all happening in the Cosmosphere. Our narrator right now, is very interesting. It really does feel like it's Brandon Sanderson just telling this goofy story. Like you don't, like in my brain it's like, oh no, this is definitely Sanderson getting in there, inserting himself. It's been really enjoyable because it's a very just easygoing, very fun, definitely a springtime read. I would definitely recommend this one for the spring if you guys are needing some recommendations. This one, really fun. It's my third Sanderson book that I've read, because I've read the first two Mistborn, and the spoiler we had was Sazed. They mentioned Sazed in like one line, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a spoiler for me, because now I'm like, okay, well, I know Sazed from Mistborn series, and so it's like, okay, so what's going on? I'm so confused, and it's really, really fun. Definitely recommend it. It's been so much fun reading it, and also listening to it, so yeah. Alright, I will talk to you guys later.